Hello, everyone. Welcome to the CAF News. Today we'll be talking about Google naming a chief AI architect, more than a reorg, probably some sort of statement about architecture and the AI strategy. And then we will preview next week's Chief Architect Forum event with a couple of sessions that you won't want to miss, including one from our very own Brice Ominski. Brice, how you doing?
Doing really great. Thanks for the introduction, Kevin. Yeah, two very interesting and coincidental postings from Google. The first one is the appointment of a guy named Kore Kavukoglu. I hope I pronounced that
I'm
right.
glad you tried that one.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Kavukoglu. And he used to be the CTO at DeepMind, and now he reports directly to Sundar Pichai at Google. And this comes along Google launching enterprise AI for business. And so is this a coincidence? Could this be a move away from a product manager of features towards putting an AI architect in that can handle some of the more systemic issues that relate to those features? What are your thoughts on this one, Kevin?
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting coming from such a Goliath. Um, People have begun calling themselves AI architects. Now Google has a chief AI architect. Is this an expansion of domains? The old business data application technology. Do we add, does BDAT become BData? It may. Um, it's interesting to see them kind of uniting architecture, model lifecycle, business alignment, kind of expanding their playbook across products. The kind of devil's advocate on my shoulder wonders, well, I mean, maybe it is, and maybe also it's just because there's another, profit center, an enterprise product that needs someone as a head to be watching the P&L. I don't know. That might be too
Well,
cynical. This guy was the CTO of DeepMind. So he's not just, not even a product manager at this point. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see what they do with this and how they converge AI strategy, architecture, and if it's a model that would begin to see elsewhere.
well, that's interesting. I think there's certainly a line there between hype versus do they really need a chief AI architect? And just to talk to some of the things that I see as key differences there, right? One would be the focus, what one would hope. Product manager is very focused on features and feature roadmaps. On the other hand, a chief AI architect would be able to have more of an enterprise-wide focus on the AI architecture, interoperability, and systemic issues, right? I think the second issue that we might want to look at is going across domains. And I think this is a big one. It really, to me, speaks to interoperability moving forward with things. And finally, I think it comes to this a long-term viewpoint. But I think the focus on interoperability versus a standalone product manager could be interesting, right? So you introduce this suite of AI products, it won't be standalone. I think that somebody like Google is starting to realize the connection to other systems is paramount to success, nothing standalone.
Yeah, that's interesting. I mean, I can certainly think of maybe not an exact parallel, but something that rhymes that they did not do this with and have been roundly criticized for doing poorly messaging. Messaging has been a
Oh,
disaster at Google. They've had 17 different products that did it different ways. They still do. Chat and video
yeah.
and what, they cannot, there has not been a single unifying force. And AI functionality gets sprinkled across products today in in an analogous manner. It'll be interesting to see if they can, one, because it needs to be driven, in their enterprise suite, but two, because it is so cross-cutting, if they're able to kind of get everyone aligned and drive in a unified direction, if not, just one, but several streams in the same direction. That'll be interesting to see.
Yeah, that's a great point. And interoperability, integration become, I think, again, paramount issues there. Yeah, and I think, as they move towards maybe even something like a broader AI fabric, maybe this is a signal that they're thinking that way.
Yeah, could be. Yeah, it's interesting. I don't, you could be tempted to think that it's not just a reorg, that it's speaking to that AI architecture is now a part of corporate architecture, a CTO rising to chief architect of AI, just like CIOs kind of grew out of IT. Will that be the norm in 3 years? I don't know. Could certainly be.
Very interesting. And now our next topic, Kevin, are you going to the Chief Architect Forum quarterly event on Wednesday at 4 p.m. CEST? Are you going to be there?
Be there, October 23rd. Yeah, the CAF quarterly event. The forum is going live. There are 3 talks around kind of shaping the next wave of architecture. We are going to be welcoming Anil Pantanji, who's going to talk about agentic AI in telecom. Some real world, nuts and bolts case studies on agents managing networks, optimizing resources dynamically. Pretty interesting stuff, and at some scale. So yeah, interesting to hear about network operations being run by intelligent agents. Charles Betts is going to stay in AI, but in connection with his work with Forrester, has been doing, I think, scratching his own, I am not an itch, not a need, but just following his own interest around. You've probably been hearing and seeing things about, like, that an LLM does much better and produces better results when it has a knowledge graph to work from, not just some PDFs thrown in, not just RAG, but actually a knowledge graph in a graph database. And then behind that, an ontology so that it understands the entities and their relationships. And he's done a lot of interesting kind of exploration in this area, and is going to talk about
that could be really
theory.
interesting. That's a topic that I find very interesting, especially when you consider the inclusion of ontologies.
Yeah.
Often through this approach, dramatically reduces hallucinations that are,
sure.
in the LLMs.
Yeah.
It's a huge way forward. And of course, we've seen companies like Palantir leverage this approach with a lot of the stuff they're doing. Very popular, very powerful.
Yeah. So hopefully, at some point your CMDB, ServiceNow, or whoever it is, will be thinking for you, not just storing things for you. And then we're going to have this guy, Brice Ominski. Do you know him?
I do.
He's going to be talking about kind of a transformation trap, AI and digital reboots failing, because a lot of times not enough attention is paid to architectural drift, or just poor architecture being amplified by by AI, by the increasing pace of technology. What give our viewers some insight? Give them a preview. What can they expect from your talk, Brice?
Well, if you look at innovation, it's been accelerating. We've seen things that take 10 years to do a corporate reboot with a new technology, moving starting in the mainframe era, now moving to the introduction of things like AI. that are happening. This, this technology is going to be out in less than a year or two. And then there'll be the next technology, which should be quantum or something else. The issue, though, is it takes so long to do a transformation. And we're going to look at why we're hitting the ceiling right now in terms of dealing with innovation and in terms of dealing with digital transformation. And we're going to talk to a couple of case studies in there about companies that have been up against the edge. And I would venture to say that a lot of digital transformation that we're coming up to in modern times is really that this innovation is happening faster than we can re-architect with our current approaches. And that's what we're really going to touch on. We've only got 20 minutes, so we're just going to point out what the transformation trap is and what we need to do to deal with it. And there's a lot more coming in that area.
Yeah, interesting. That should be really good. And I think maybe the sequencing is right for the event on the 23rd. You'll be leading it off. Then we roll to Anil, who is talking about agents at scale now, and then Charles talking about bedrocking all this on top of graphs and ontologies.
There's certainly a golden thread going through here that fits. I'm really looking forward to that. Yeah. And if you are in the Chief Architect Forum, it's a live event. And I think that gives us the opportunity to have a really great dialogue around some of these things. And some of these topics for some people are really uncomfortable. Like there's a lot of change happening. So I really encourage, if you can make it, have a dialogue with the authors, get involved. I think it's going to be a great event.
Yeah, absolutely. Should be really, really interesting. If you're not a member, hurry over to chiefarchitectforum.org, register, and you'll at least be able to catch a replay. And that I think wraps it, right, Brice? Was there anything you had on the?
That's it.
The last moment here.
No,
all
that's
right.
great.
Well, until next time, keep architecting the future, one good decision at a time, including joining and meeting up on the 23rd. See you there.
Thanks, everyone. Cheers.